One thing you got to remember that Google has, you should never discount them because they got a blessing and a curse. They have more data than anybody. They own Chrome. I'd wager Google probably wins the game. Imagine that you took the typeset and the colors of the McDonald's logo and you did the Tiffany and Company logo in those colors and fonts on the building.
All wrong.
Take the Tiffany letters and the colors and stick it on a hamburger restaurant.
Yeah, no way.
But most people will say, I'm going to make my logo blue or I'm going to make it green. They don't think about why. Justin Bieber cannot buy another
But they
Ferrari
made a
ever.
very
They made a very public thing about it.
Very public.
Yeah.
It was shameful. What
Yeah.
He did. Justin Bieber, so he gets banned. And what does this cause?
One thing you got to remember that Google has, you should never discount them because they got a blessing and a curse. They have more data than anybody. They own Chrome.
Yeah.
They know everything that comes up in that browser on you. So if you own Facebook, you know what goes on in Facebook.
Right.
If you pull in that data, Zuckerberg will never have anywhere even remotely near the data that Chrome has, because Chrome sees everything you do in Facebook.
Right.
It sees everything.
Instagram.
It reads every email you've ever sent.
Right.
Think about
every
that.
Google search, everything.
Every Google search you've ever done. It knows your intent. Every
Even
YouTube
when you're in incognito.
every YouTube video you've ever watched. They have sometimes I'll ask it for customer avatar stuff and it'll give me some odd things that I don't get everywhere else. Their deep research tool is pretty good if you don't want to wait a long time because they can run a deep research that's pretty damn good in about a minute. And it's pretty good. And sometimes I'll take that deep research and take it over to deep research on OpenAI and say, hey, I ran this research report, but I'd like for you to run it deeper. And I'll start with the Gemini research report and take it there and run that. It's interesting what you get. It's good for that. It's also good for one weird thing. You can I use this for a couple of our websites. I can go to Gemini and say, I want you to tell me the process of baking a loaf of sourdough bread. And it'll create this big, long process, right? And then I'll say, now, I'd like for you to make me an image of each step of the process in a series. And it'll make you a whole string of images of each step in the process of doing a thing, for instance. The images aren't great. They're pretty good. They're not great. But it's pretty amazing that it understands. They'll show, okay, first you need to mix the flour and the water and the salt and put it in the blender and then do this and do this. And it'll give you 6-8 photos. So if you need a photo montage or whatever, it's really great. I don't have a lot of other uses for it. I really believe it to be, I know you've got Perplexity on probably next up, right? It does have the benefit of being incredibly current.
Right.
Yeah. So
Which ChatGPT and Claude are not.
Yeah. So if you need to find out, if you want to look at, hey, who are the biggest losers and the biggest winners in the market today in the Dow Jones Industrial Average that have a market cap of over $2 billion and a P ratio of 20-1. And it'll go, bloop.
Right.
There you go. So all the stuff that you need to research that's current, it's making Perplexity less valuable.
Okay.
Because Perplexity
It's great.
Because Perplexity owned that category for a while.
Right. They were the new Google.
They were the only AI that gave you super current, up to the minute data. And now Google's new model, the Gemini 2.5, they call it, is their new model. And it benchmarks out.
Everybody with G Suite now has it.
Yeah.
It's part of their G Suite.
It benchmarks out really high. And I would venture to say, if I had to wager on who wins the game, I'd wager Google probably wins the game.
So I really wanted to spend some time talking about product naming, brand naming, business naming. Prior to me meeting you, I don't think I put the attention to those things. You have been very instrumental to a lot of our mastermind members on the naming of their businesses and their products, or the renaming, which went from dead products to good products. And I think that there's a lot of different nuances. This is going to be the most boring one because I'm not going to argue with you much. We'll see. We'll see.
Tsunami, tornado, Earthquake.
I've branded myself quite well, haven't I? But I want to walk through that, and I want to help other people walk through that in their own businesses. And I've watched you over since we started doing Make It Real together, 8-9 months now.
Something like that.
Since you started doing Make It Real together, I've been watching you. That's part of what you do with them, and I've been watching just the magic that happens. But it goes from your brain to your mouth, and you don't really ever explain to people the whys. So I wanted to take some time for our audience to learn that from you. So I think my first question is, why is it so important to name not only your brand, your business name correctly, but then your products, your premiums? Why is it so important what you call something?
It's strategic, right? You need a naming strategy. The vast majority of people have no naming strategy.
Explain what that means.
Yeah, if you were to go to New York City and talk to an advertising agency and say, hey, I get this widget, and I want to sell this widget. That's what Procter & Gamble does, for instance. They'll go to a company like Alexandria Watkins Company and say, hey, we got this mop thing that they developed that has a microfiber towel on the end of a stick, and we want to sell it. And they would name that the Swiffer, which is what ended up happening, right? The Swiffer was a $75,000 naming project, if you can believe that. Somebody got paid $75,000 to name it. Totally worth it, right? There are methodologies to creating names that a lot of work has to go in before the name gets created. What we do as business owners, most of the time, we see it as it doesn't matter that much kind of thing. And we typically name it whatever pops to mind, maybe something cute, maybe something catchy, maybe something dumb. I'll tell a story about a company called Fesco Filters that I bought. That was a water filtration company that sounded like something festered inside the water filter. Awful. There's intention, and you really have to understand before you go to name something, who's the avatar you're selling it to, what emotions do you want the product to emote, what's going to be memorable. There are different things that you name within the business. Most people are like, I'm going to name my business this, or I'm going to name my product that. Different rules apply to those different areas of branding or naming. Before you ever get to your brand, before you get to the logo, is it going to be pretty in print? Is it going to be easy to spell? If you say it on the radio, in a radio commercial, are people going to know how to spell it when they go to type it into a computer or when they go to look it up? Is it memorable? Does it emote something that it does? Is it descriptive? If it's not descriptive, you need a tagline. So there's all sorts of things that go into naming. And I always try to tell people, think of your product like a book. Like, how would you name a book? And would it fund? That's a big piece for me. Whether I'm going to raise money for something or not, I want to know that if I walked in front of a team of venture capitalists, I wouldn't feel stupid saying, oh, this is the extra super duper sweeper system. Nobody's going to fund that. Somebody might fund the Swiffer, but the Swiffer has the little swirl to it. It emotes that it's going to be quick. There's a lot of time that went into that. There are really three big areas that I've found. Naming your company, which is probably the least important thing you'll name, but it's important still. Naming your products or your brand lines are really important. Procter & Gamble doesn't mean a lot to people, right? It's a big corporation. It doesn't mean a lot. But Palmolive dishwashing liquid means something. Joy dishwashing liquid. Great name, right? Yellow bottle, sunshiny. Joy. It's going to be so joyful washing dishes. Or Tide. That means the Tide washes away everything, right? Think about the naming of that product, Tide, right? What's the Tide do on the beach? It washes everything away. So it really is smart. Small letters, very memorable. The fewer letters, the better. And that product name really doesn't have to mean anything. It can be descriptive or not. Like Google doesn't mean anything. But it's memorable, right?
I think it actually does have a meaning, but nobody knows.
It's a number of digits, yeah. The geeks know it.
Devin is the only person.
But like Formula 409. How many people have used Formula 409? It was the 409th formula they came up when formulating this cleaner. And nobody could come up with a better name.
Formula 409.
Or Bounty paper towels. So Bounty's not a great name. Not a true, it's easy to remember, but not a great name. So what do? They have a great tagline. What's a tagline?
I don't clean.
The quicker picker upper.
Is that it?
It's a tagline.
Okay.
It
Isn't
absorbs more liquid than anything else, right? So you got to have a great tagline if you don't have a descriptive brand. Like FedEx used to be Federal Express. Nobody knew what Federal Express was. They were selling a brand new concept, but they had an amazing tagline when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. That was their tagline. And then over time, when they rebranded to FedEx, because it only took up 5 letters and smaller names are better. We interrupt this pod to bring you this really special announcement. You need to go right now. Well, maybe do they want to go right now? Want to stop?
No, at the end. We don't want to have them stop.
Go to trainwreckshow.com. There's lots of bots there, GPT bots that do things for you, that do a lot of your work. So you don't have to work so much and drink more beer. The episode archives are over there. There's all of our resources, worksheets, workbooks. Everything that we've done that we give away is over there. Go get it right now. There's a lot of resources there. Way more resources that you get when you buy a lot of communities, I think.
And don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can catch every episode as soon as it hits. We'll send you a notification.
It doesn't mean you're liking Emma, by the way, because I know that slows us down on our likes. You can just click and say, I like Perry. You don't have to like Emma. It works the same way. The shorter the name, the better, except in luxury goods.
I was just going to say, does your type of brand matter?
Yeah. Luxury goods can be longer. Okay. Harry Winston is a great example. Yeah. Luxury brands, there's a whole different
set of rules
for luxury brands. They're completely different. And normally they're named after a person, a founder, Gucci or Ferragamo, or they're named after the designer or whatever. Not always, but most of the time something along those lines. They use a completely different font set. If you don't think about, like, when you're naming is one thing, but you're eventually going to take that name and put it in type in a logo. If you don't understand how important it is to think these things through. Imagine that you took the typeset and the covers, the typeset and the colors of the McDonald's logo, and you did the Tiffany and Company logo in those colors and fonts on the building.
Those are all wrong. Those colors are economy.
The font's wrong. The color's wrong.
Everything.
Take the
fast and cheap.
Take the Tiffany letters and the colors and stick it on a hamburger restaurant.
Yeah, no way.
But most people will say, I'm going to make my logo blue or I'm going to make it green. They don't think about why. So basically, if you don't have a business where there's more demand for what you do than there is supply for what you do, you are likely never going to make any reasonable amount of profit. That's the big soundbite takeaway. Supply and demand applies to all areas of business. It applies to employees. If you don't have enough employees to provide the services that you're trying to sell, that's not going to work either. But when you're in the business of selling anything or offering anything for sale, any kind of business, beyond the product, beyond you, beyond the branding, beyond anything, it is the core fundamental foundation of all things that are business. If there's more supply than there is demand, you are likely going to suffer because the customer's in charge. The customer's in the cab. If you try to buy a car during COVID, you know what I'm talking about. Car dealers had the upper hand. They were charging $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 over sticker price. Why? There weren't enough cars. Now, a car dealer will beg you to come on the lot to buy a car because they have lots full of cars because they oversupplied. There's a story called the Lover's Beer Story. Look it up, the Lover's Beer Story. It's a first year, I think, Harvard Business or Stanford Business experiment. And it's about a little beer company called Lover's Beer. And a rapper goes on and does this huge viral rap video drinking Lover's Beer. And all of a sudden, all the Lover's Beer nationwide sells out. And the little company has to ramp up to make way more beer. And they're out and they keep getting more and more orders because there's less and less beer. Everybody wants it because there's less of it, right? Like whiskey, for instance. Wine, everybody wants it because there's less of it. Eventually, they get into equilibrium and they get production caught back up. And now everybody's shelves are full with Lover's Beer. And guess what? Everybody's tired of Lover's Beer. There's too much of it. They don't want it anymore. Supply and demand is everything. It really is everything. And what I want to talk to you about on this podcast is actually creating it, inventing supply and demand.
Okay.
Because it's possible to do.
All right.
But natural supply and demand, what we probably know most commonly are things like diamond and gold and super rare things. Even Bitcoin, there's a limited amount of Bitcoin made. There's a limited amount that can ever be made per the Bitcoin blockchain. So
I just want to go back for a second and explain just a little bit. So you have supply and demand where the supply's not there for reasons like
natural rarity.
there aren't people that right, natural rarity, or there isn't enough people to go work in manufacturing hubs to build cars right now, or a supplement raw that is very difficult to
Very hard to get.
and takes a long time to manufacture.
And it could be geographic even.
And then there is created supply and demand. And I think the best example of this are Hermes bags.
Right.
There are a million.
They can make as many as they want.
A million expensive bags out there. A million. I can go to Gucci. I can go to YSL. I go in my closet. I can go get all kinds of bags. They have created a situation where you have to go buy a scarf, create a relationship with a salesperson, and then be invited to come look at a bag. And you only get so many invites. It's not even the bag you may want that you have to buy in order to be able to continue to be invited back.
And maybe you get the one that you actually want someday for $40,000.
This is absolutely absurd to me.
But
I will never own one of those bags. But every female entrepreneur friend I have, every single one, either wants one or has 6 or 7 scarves because they're trying to get invited to purchase one.
Yeah, Ferrari is an amazing example.
Yes, absolutely.
Ferrari, you have to get a Ferrari, you have to apply to get a Ferrari. If you sell the Ferrari within a certain period of time, like Justin Bieber,
right,
or you modify the Ferrari, they don't want you to modify their car. You bought it. You should be able to.
Belongs to you.
Belongs to you. But if you modify it in certain ways, or if you sell it within a shorter window, Justin Bieber is banned
from buying
Ferraris. Now, do you think that Justin Bieber's banned from buying Ferraris because if Perry did that, do you think they would ban me? Probably not. They wanted to make a public splash out.
I think you'd be banned.
Justin Bieber.
I think they're that serious.
Justin Bieber cannot buy another.
But
Ferrari
they made a very
public thing about it.
Very public thing.
And
that it was shameful what he did. For
Yeah.
those of you who don't know, Justin Bieber bought a Ferrari. He modified it
and then sold it real quick.
And then sold it within, I believe, months of purchase.
Yeah. And you can't sell it within, I think, 12 or 24 months of purchase or something like that. There's a whole bunch of rules. You know, I bought Rolls Royce, so Rolls Royce lets you do
whatever you want,
pretty much whatever you want,
which is what you should do when you pay that kind of money for a car.
$440,000, yeah.
But Justin Bieber, so he gets banned, and what does this cause?
Oh, it causes more and more publicity.
But and why would they not allow you to sell their car? I want to come back to that. So why would Ferrari say you can't sell
this more exclusivity?
My vehicle?
Like Harry Winston, very similar kind of thing. Anybody sitting at the top of the food chain, the Bernard Arnault, who owns Veuve Champagne, Louis Vuitton, a bunch of other premium brands, he hovers around the second or third richest person in the world. He's always in the top 10. And you got to think about it. These people that are his contemporaries are Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett and Elon Musk that are innovators, geniuses. You know, this guy's just selling champagne in a different color bottle.
Right.
And all this stuff about during COVID, if you paid attention, they had all the ropes up in front of all the stores. Most of them, they're still there because they found that the experiment was if they put the rope up and made you stand in line to go inside and buy a $3,000 bag, on average, you spent 30% more money once you got in the store because you feel privileged to have gotten
Can I give you another side to that, Glenn?
Sure.
Christian Louboutin, they have the whole rope thing. Caesar's Farm in Vegas. The only thing I ever loved about you living in Vegas was being able to go to Caesar's at that particular one because I had a sales girl there. And there is nothing more exciting, which sets off all kinds of dopamine in your brain and you're ready to spend, than walking up to a line and having your salesperson come out and being like, Miss Rainville.
Just come right in.
You come right in. You skip this. And then, because I can text her and tell her I'm coming.
Yeah.
Why? Because I've gone in there and dropped several grand.
Yeah.
Enough times that she's excited when she comes in on her day off when I'm going. That's a no shit. But there's such a beautiful thing that they've created with all of this.
Oh, the casinos are brilliant with it. There's
Yeah.
always a bigger suite.
Not only do you feel not only do you feel super important standing on a red carpet behind rope to get in line to go give them all of your money.
Yeah.
But then they've also created this next tier for people who have consistently given them
Right.
all of their money so that you get to pass the line up. And when you get to pass the red carpet and go behind the rope, like, it's brilliant.
Every restaurant in a casino has the diamond line, the platinum line, the gold line, the what. When you go into the Wynn, when you come through the back door of the Wynn, which is my favorite way to go to the Wynn, because if you're going to the back door,
Yep. You're already way more important than
you're
everybody
already
else.
more important. When you walk in the back door of the Wynn, they have these beautiful pools and all that, and there are these like 8 doors as soon as you walk in, and those are the villas. You can't buy them; they're not for rent.
Is that true?
Yeah, you can't get a villa at the Wynn. You can't get it. It has to be given to you because you're a high rolling gambler or what have you.
Yeah.